Okay, there we go. We're recording. So, welcome everybody to the November meeting of the PRC. So, hopefully, everybody who wanted to get to a Remembrance Day ceremony this morning did so, and that'd be great. Okay, so first things first. Uh, we have a couple of regrets regarding attendance. Matthew couldn't make it today, but he said he'll certainly be back here for next month. And Rob McGregor couldn't make it, but he sent me the minutes of the public service or the public safety committee. So I'll read those into the record when we get to that. Right. I don't have anybody else who indicated they weren't going to be here, so I expect Irving still will be coming in, and I'm not too sure about Howard, but we'll wait. Oh, there's Irving there. So great. Hang on a sec. Good. There's Irving and Stefan, so that's super.
Hi, Mara. Miles, how are you?
Hey, good. Thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. You can hear me, I gather.
Yeah, yep, yeah. With the you're an astronaut today.
Yes, I am.
Very good. Very good. Oh, okay. The meeting is just starting, so I've basically indicated that we won't be seeing Matthew or Rob today. I haven't heard from Howard, but if he doesn't show up, then we expect that he won't be showing up. So the first thing to do is to approve the agenda as circulated. So can I have a mover and a seconder?
Peter will move it.
Okay. And Andrea, the seconder, thank you very much. All right. So news and announcements. Obviously, the big bit of news that's been announced since our last meeting is the federal budget, the fall 2025 budget. So what I've done in that regard is I've created an addendum to our agenda, which is basically the criminal justice matters that are addressed in the federal budget. So there's a list. I think I've identified six of them, as strengthening border security, the expansion of the RCMP and federal policing, creation of a financial crimes agency, launch of a national anti-fraud strategy, bail reform and sentencing initiatives, and defense and security measures. So all of those things were basically referenced in the budget, but not all of them had actual money or capital allocated to them. So when I look more closely at the budget, here's what we have that is actually indicating that monies will be spent on these items in the upcoming years. So firstly, with respect to the Canada Border Plan, $1.3 billion has been allocated to that to strengthen border security, hire 1,000 new CBSA, that's Canada Border Services Agency officers, modernize border technology, and expand intelligence sharing. With respect to the expansion of the RCMP, the budget includes $30 billion for hiring 1,000 new RCMP personnel to combat organized crime, money laundering, and drug trafficking. The creation of the Financial Crimes Agency has had an allocated 100 to 300 million as startup funds. Nothing more specific is given to that amount, other than to indicate that it is to serve as a lead national enforcement body for money laundering, fraud, and online financial crimes. The item dealing with national anti-fraud strategy does not have any funds allocated to it. The bail reform and sentencing initiatives, which we're going to talk about clearly when we get to bills, it actually has no monies allocated, but indicates that it's in the budget to strengthen bail laws and sentencing for repeat and violent offenders with prevention investments. But again, no money's indicating what those investments would be. The defense and security investments, there's $30 billion is going to be spent over 5 years. And that's a broader investment covering policing, national security, cyber and space surveillance, and Arctic monitoring. And overall, protecting Canada is indicated that 280 billion of capital investment will be spent tied to defense and security. So there we go. That's what's in the budget. Does anybody have any comments or questions with respect to the federal budget and those amounts? Yes, Brendan.
Yeah, I just have one comment, Miles. It's yeah, more of a comment. It's I'm just wondering if anyone has any other ideas or understanding of this. But the setting up of that new organization for financial crime and whatnot, For a government that seems so intent on finding efficiencies and whatnot, this new organization seems to overlap heavily with what FinTrack and other like financial crime sort of organizations do. And of course, the RCMP has a mandate for financial crime and all that. So I don't know if this is like posturing or if anyone has any understanding of what separates this organization from the ones that currently exist, but and maybe it's just a comment or seeking clarification if anyone has any more info.
My understanding is that it's not new money, it's existing money being shifted to the organization. So I imagine that means that a good chunk of that will come from FinTrack, come from the RCMP, and what have you, and just putting it under the umbrella of this new agency. That's
I
my
see.
take on it. Yeah,
Okay, that would make more sense.
yeah. Anything else, anybody?
Just Peter here. The only thing I just wanted to comment on is that hiring 2,000 personnel, 1,000 each for CBSA and RCMP, in my opinion, is very much pie in the sky. It looks great, but to actually have it done in a reasonable period of time, probably before this, the next 5 years, I really believe it will be almost impossible. It looks good, sounds good, but it's just not realistic.
That's a lot of
Hmm.
sign bonuses, isn't it? Um,
Yeah. And the other thing too is, well, interestingly enough, RCMP just turned out in Alberta here a small group of, I think it was 5 or 6 previously employed officers who went over to the RCMP. Their training at depot was only 3 weeks. Basically, what they were doing was just giving them the RCMP overview of now you're a Mountie, and basically relying on their past experience as police officers, experienced police officers from other departments in Canada. It's. I just think it's going to be a very interesting time. CBSA has an attrition rate of around 700 a year, just anyways, and just keeping up with that attrition alone is taxing their training facility in Quebec totally. So that's just my comments.
Good. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate the inside knowledge. Brendan, your hands up?
Yeah, just since Peter touched on that, it's really interesting. I agree. Hiring that many officers will be really tricky. And actually, in I don't know if it was SEC or it was some committee I was just happened to be watching at work. The Minister of Public Safety was specifically questioned on these 1,000 officers and things like that. There was I believe it was a Bloc MP who was basically saying, "Well, we're going to train all these people. The facility in Quebec can't actually train that many people. So, are you going to build a new facility?" And it appeared. The minister was less than clear from what I gather, like if they were going to make something new or not. I think when they were talking about the 1,000 personnel, and again, this has led to a lot of confusion among like the senators that I've seen is it's not necessarily going to be 1,000 officers, either, 1,000 officers for the RCMP or the CBSA. There there might be some admin, some other roles in there that aren't necessarily like border agents or members. So anyway, there seems to be a bit of confusion on what the actual numbers mean and how the government will achieve them. Yeah, so a lot of I guess uncertainty is from my point of view.
Okay, good. Thanks, Brendan. Anything else? Okay, good stuff. All right, business arising. Let's move then to the parliamentary committees. The first one is the House of Commons Justice and Human Rights. So, Sarah, what's happened since our last meeting?
Okay, so since our last meeting, the Justice Committee's met 5 times. 2 of those discussions were about bail reform, and then 3 of them were about Bill C9, which is the hate propaganda, hate crime, and access to religious cultural spaces. They've so far agreed to meet for 5 meetings regarding that Bill C9, for witness testimony before moving to voting and amendments. And then the bail reform really had no kind of set end date. They were kind of just going through the study. Um, in terms of things that have kind of happened during that, like big focuses that were discussed, the bail reform, they had a lot of Indigenous witnesses come forward in one of those meetings that were bringing a lot of focus to the systematic causes of recidivism, not just on stricter bail policy and kind of stricter detention. So there was a lot of focus on that. And then there was a lot of call that was highlighting practical issues around the police resources, basically. So there was a lot of issue around how police resources were going to be used. It sounds like it's just an unrealistic thing to be asking all of these police officers to be monitoring high-risk offenders at the level that is being expected or that is being requested. So kind of some unrealistic expectations. And then for Bill C9, the main concern is the definition within Bill C9 about hatred and intimidation. The issue is that they're too broad and that they could lead to two different things, either police not being able to enforce that something is a hate crime, and then the opposite, where things might be lumped into that category when they're not a hate crime. So just the definitions need to be revisited. That was another topic that came up again. There's also a call for education and preventative programs rather than just solely relying on the criminal law for Bill C9 for just like education around what is a hate crime and education within schools to reduce those that kind of rhetoric, I guess, getting around. In meeting 8, so this was on this is on October 23rd. This was regarding the bail sentencing and reform. They actually did the first reading of Bill C-14, which is the Bail Sentencing and Reform Act. So they basically proposed the Federation of Canadian Municipalities have proposed a 5-step plan with 80 clauses of targeted changes regarding bail reform. And the 5 steps that they've kind of gone through are strengthening the criminal code for repeat offenders, increasing capacity for the justice system, better national data sharing and information sharing, and then improving bail enforcement practices, and then addressing root causes of repeat offending. So it is really interesting to hear that within the federal budget, Miles, that there's no money allocated to this when they've really produced this impressive large scale plan. So I'm curious what is going on there, or if this is, it doesn't sound like this is for sure being enacted yet. It's a proposed plan. So they've done the first reading, obviously have to continue on through the process. But yeah, I'm curious about the budget as it relates to this, because it sounds like a lot. And
Thanks.
that's all I've got.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments for Sarah? All right, great. We'll return to Bill C-14 when we get to the bill section. Okay, so Rob McGregor couldn't make it today, but he did send me this morning minutes for SECU. And I'll read it for the purpose of into the record. So SECU met 6 times since our previous meeting. The subject of the first 2 meetings was Canada-US border management. The 3rd and 4th was Bill C-8, the 5th Bill C-12, and the 6th both C-8 and C-12. So on October 21st of 2025, the topic of discussion was Canada-US border management. Representatives appeared from the Niagara Falls Bridge Commission, Buffalo and Fort Erie Public Bridge Authority, and Royal Military College of Canada. Discussions involved around ways to further secure the border without hindering trade between the United States and Canada. The next meeting, October 23rd, 2025, the topic of discussion was Canada-US border management again. The Minister of Public Safety and the Secretary of State for Combating Crime appeared along with the CBSA President, the Department of Public Safety Deputy Minister, Privy Council Office, and the RCMP Commissioner. Discussions focused mainly on immigration, deportation, drug trafficking, the hire of 1,000 CBSA officers, which includes 800 border officers and 200 operational personnel, with training starting in November. So that's now, obviously, and the first cohort completing training by March, and the RCMP hiring of 1,000 personnel, which is to be 750 police officers and 250 public service employees. The further next 2 meetings, October 28th and the 30th, the topic of discussion was Bill C-8, an act respecting cybersecurity, amending the Telecommunications Act, and making consequential amendments. Representatives appeared from the Communications Security Establishment, Department of Industry, and the Department of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, several other government departments, and a variety of private sector organizations. On November the 4th, 2025, the topic was Bill C-12, an act respecting certain measures relating to the security of Canada's borders and the integrity of the Canadian immigration system, and respecting other related measures. Representatives appeared from CBSA, the Canadian Coast Guard, the Department of Citizenship and Immigration, Department of Health, and the Department of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. And lastly, on November the 6th, 2025, the committee continued studies of Bill C8 and C12. For Bill C8, the Minister of Public Safety appeared along with representatives from the Department of Industry and Department of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. For Bill C12, the Minister of Public Safety appeared along with the representatives from the CBSA, Department of Citizenship and Immigration, and the Department of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, and the RCMP. So if anybody has any questions, Rob would be glad to receive those, and I'm sure he'd respond to you in a timely manner. The next committee is the Senate Committee on Legal and Constitutional Affairs, and that brings us to Brendan.
Yep, back to me. So the committee met 6 times since our last meeting. They discussed 3 bills, or sorry, 2 bills, and had a different meeting. So they were discussing Bill S-209, which is the restriction of pornographic material for youth, more or less. It's a continuing bill. They've had quite a number of meetings, though it's only 3 in this last month period. There's been a number of them. And as I mentioned last time, this is a bill that was sort of died on the order paper last Parliament. Again, the issues that most senators and most witnesses appear to be largely in favor of instituting some sort of age verification to access material on them. Of course, how to do that and to respect privacy, it kind of seems to be up in the air. There are different ways of doing it, and different countries have done so. I think Germany and the UK have done it, though there have been some concerns about leaks and all of that. And one thing the committee saw that was, I think, relatively new, even from the previous iteration of this bill, was there was talk from a technology company that essentially um, uh, takes a photo, or at least confirms identity, but immediately erases the data, so it's only kept momentarily. One thing, another issue that I thought was particularly salient, at least for this bill currently, um, the bill calls for, um, sorry, I should say Google was brought in because it's been proposed that maybe search engines and larger internet providers do the verification. Google's point of view, and I imagine it'd be shared by other large conglomerates, is they're they're not necessarily responsible for each individual website, and each individual website should be responsible for age verification. So the reason I bring that up is because it looks like there could be a fight between whose responsibility it is to um, verify age. So I can see that causing issues. However, we haven't gotten much past that point. Clause by clause, the bill was postponed. I'm not exactly sure why. They'd finished all their meetings, and then the committee decided to postpone clause by clause on that. They said there's a possibility to call more witnesses, so I suspect they might want some more witnesses before they proceed to clause by clause. Yeah, so that's where S-209 is. Most recently, the committee began deliberations on Bill S-205, an act to amend the Corrections and Conditional Release Act. It's a page bill. Again, another bill that died on your paper last. It had passed through third reading, I think, in December 2024. There weren't large changes to it at the time, and the bill has more or less been revived in its same form. So I'm not going to bother going into too much depth, but the idea is generally for the bill to allow for to ensure individuals aren't with mental health issues are not being held in solitary confinement, are being provided transfers to provincial mental health institutions. Um, Same concerns, again, because more or less the same bill, similar concerns are being raised now as they were previously about the actual feasibility of, I think, 48-hour judicial review. Same issues arising regarding the feasibility of sending individuals with mental health issues to provincial facilities, which might not have the resources to take them in. Anyway, really, it does seem kind of deja vu at this point, everything that's being said. Finally, the committee, and sorry, that is ongoing. That's the latest thing they've been working on. The committee also met on one occasion to discuss future business for the committee. They're realizing that they didn't have a whole lot on their plate at the moment, though they're acutely aware that the bail bill will be coming through their coming to them at some point. They're trying to plan for perhaps another study. Six proposals were made. In all honesty, they're all variations on a theme, or it could be grouped together. Senator Arnault proposed a review of the criminal code. That's long been touted, and I think it's supported more or less by the CCJ, basically trying to uh, tidy up the criminal code. Now, importantly, the senator was saying that the Senate committee would not be the one undertaking that review, but essentially studying how best that review could be undertaken, whether that be by the Law Commission of Canada, whether that be by a royal commission, etc. So, the idea, the proposed study, is how to study um, unifying or streamlining the criminal code. There were other proposals that basically end up coming underneath that umbrella. For example, there was essentially what the other senators presented was along the lines of making sure there's a victim lens and how victims fit in or don't fit into the criminal code. Senator Batters spoke about criminal court delay, harkening back to the 2017 Justice Delayed report. Um, Sorry, give me 1 second. I had them all written down. So criminal court modernization, victims. Criminal code amendments to organized crime was another one. Studying the Black Justice Strategy and Systemic Racism report. Um, and I think those are more or less what the different proposals are. Again, they were originally sort of presented as proposals, but then all the senators were like, "Well, I didn't actually prepare anything, and I think this can fit under the criminal justice modernization study they want to undertake." Seems like quite a large bill. Sorry, uh, not a bill in the parliamentary sense, but it seems like quite a big issue to tackle. The senators did mention that it might be a good thing to do because they can pick it up and put it down as required based on whatever else is going through Parliament at that time. So they only had one meeting on that. We'll see where they go with it and what they actually propose. But I thought it was at least interesting that they're aware of this and trying to push it forward. And that is more or less it for the committee.
Great, Brendan. Very comprehensive. Thank you. Any comments or questions for Brendan in the Justice Committee or the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee? No? Okay, and lastly, it's Dick who's going to relate to the Human Rights Committee.
Right. Excuse me. The committee has had 3 meetings since our last PRC meeting, and they've heard from 20 witnesses. And excuse me. At the first meeting, did I? I didn't indicate. I just jumped over this. The whole focus is on a study of anti-Semitism in Canada. That's what the focus of the committee is and has been for the last few meetings. At the first meeting, it was mainly Jewish organizations and individuals, including Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center and B'nai B'rith Canada. And a major theme, not the only theme, but a major theme of their comments and recommendations was the need for better education about anti-Semitism. The second meeting heard from Public Safety Canada, RCMP, and Secure Canada, which is an anti-terrorism organization founded by the families of Canadian victims of 9/11. Public Service Canada reviewed its various programs to combat anti-Semitism, and they highlighted the government's recent proposed amendments to the criminal code, that's C9, relating to hate propaganda, hate crime, and access to religious or cultural places. The RCMP said that their focus related to anti-Semitism is in the area of hate crimes. They stated that there has been an increase of 180% in anti-Semitic hate crimes over the last 4 years. Secure Canada recommended a greater use of terrorism laws in cases of anti-Semitic violent crimes. And that brings us to meeting number 3, an organization called Independent Jewish Voices, and also a law professor at the University of Windsor were witnesses. Three main points here. One, the importance of distinguishing between anti-Semitism and anti-Israel or anti-Zionism. In other words, anti-Semitism is different from criticism of Israel. Secondly, they pointed out problems with the definition of anti-Semitism that has been developed by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, known as IRA. And this definition has been adopted apparently by the government of Canada. And lastly, there was concern about the statistics in this field. The reported statistics they claimed on anti-Semitism incidents are often, very often, inaccurate and hugely inflated. And that's about it.
Thanks, Dick. Any questions or comments for Dick?
Peter here. I just wanted to ask Dick, when you said that the RCMP said the number of incidents over the last 4 years have gone up, I think you said 180%.
Right.
Did they give actual numbers for that other than just a percentage? 180% is a lot, but at the same time, do we know what the actual numbers are? Because I think that also is an influencing factor.
Yeah, it's a good point. My recollection is that they didn't break it down, below the 180%.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Dick. All right, guys, moving on. So other items under business arising. There's nothing that is new that wasn't discussed last time, other than the fact that I've basically highlighted under the Law Commission of Ontario issues regarding AI that Sarah and Michelle are preparing a position paper. So that was from last meeting. Is that still the case?
Yeah, we are still preparing that position paper. We've moved from kind of loose ideas and research into a first draft now that we're editing. So we should have that to present to the PRC. I don't know, within the next couple meetings, I would imagine. We're working on it slowly, but we're getting very excited about it.
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay. All right. Moving then to bills under consideration.
Miles, just under possible new business, just an interesting point that came out. The 4 police officers from Winnipeg who were found guilty of conspiracy and corrupt practices, etc. That has caused the government of Manitoba now apparently to be hiring, or at least going to be funding, a review of, I believe it was 2,300 cases that those individuals were a party to. Some of the allegations, or some of the corruption charges dealt with taking of drugs, etc. And so there was a definite impact on the criminal justice system there. And so I think that was, it's worthwhile noting, and something to in the background watch just as we move forward, because it's I think it's really significant, sort of like, lions one, Christians nothing, and I think it's really important to monitor that stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. It is. So if you can keep us up to date as we move forward in future agendas, I'll before I move on, I'll ask for updates and take it from there. So thanks, Peter. It's important. Okay. Anything else for new business before I move on? All right. Okay, bills under consideration. So we have a couple of a little bit of movement. So Bill C2, nothing moved. Bill C9, and this has already been referenced, the dealing with hate propaganda. It's moved to a second reading on October the 1st. Bill C12, relating to Canada border security, is a second reading on October 23rd. And obviously the big item in the bills under consideration is Bill C14, which is basically the act with respect to bail and the Youth Criminal Justice Act and all of the proposed amendments in that regard. It had first reading on October 23rd, second reading on the 3rd of November, so not that long ago, only last week. It hasn't gone to committee for testimony yet, but it will very shortly. So I'm not going to go through them all because I've itemized items A through the alphabet with respect to what the bill is going to propose to change. So it's there for everybody's reading. We've already sent, and the CCGA posted this on its social media campaign that the CCGA has already submitted to the Justice Committee Dick's report on bail reform, and we talked about this last day. It's basically an overall reform of the legislation itself. It just doesn't deal with individual pieces of the puzzle like reverse onuses and mandatory minimums. It in fact is a very creative and well drafted, um, uh, basically review of the infrastructure of the bail system. And that's already in the hands of the Justice Committee. So I don't think, and Irving, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't see us necessarily preparing a brief on this issue if the CCGA has already adopted Dick's paper as representing the CCGA's position. What do you think?
I don't think we can do much better than Dick.
Yeah, I agree. What I would suggest, however, is that we appear before the Justice Committee when it calls for testimony. I would certainly go, and I would think hopefully Dick would go as well. Anybody else who wants to attend, I think Brendan, you may be interested in attending. We could certainly make a representation of the CCGA before the committee to basically highlight the reform that Dick is suggesting. It's exceptional. It should be something that is taken into account. And I would think that, and it's obviously good for the CCGA as well to have that public presence, and so appearing before both the Commons and the Senate Committee, the Justice Committee and Legal Affairs Committees, those are good things. Those are things that it's worthwhile doing, and it also gets us in front of the very influential people, the people who actually enact the laws to a great degree. Dick, would you be prepared to attend the Justice Committee at second reading?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Great. All right, I'll coordinate that. If anybody else wants to attend, please let me know. There's certainly no limitation, I mean, on appearing, although you don't usually see delegations larger than 3 or 4 for any particular group. But if you want to attend, let me know, and I will coordinate it with the clerk of the committee whenever they're going to get
Super.
ready. So it may or may not be before the end of the year. They're getting ready. They'll be breaking shortly for the Christmas break or the holiday break. So we'll take it from there. But Dick, if you're going, that's great. You're going to appear. I'll go with you, and anyone else who would like to tag along, that'd be super. Brett, is that your hand up again, Brendan? Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
we may not be invited, Miles, right?
What's that? Oh,
We
yes.
may or may not be invited.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we're not. But I've got a pretty good relationship with the clerk these days. Yeah, Brendan, what's your hand up for? Do you want to attend, or is that do you have a question?
Uh, yes, but that wasn't what it was for.
Good.
I had two comments actually. If one was, did you already circulate Dick's report? Was it in one of your emails, or did I just miss it? I may have missed it. Has it been
It was,
circulated?
yeah, I circulated it to the entire.
Okay, I will go back and look at my emails. Sorry for that.
Can't find it.
Um,
I'll send it to you again.
Okay.
Brendan, it's also on our website.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you, Irving. I will. All
Okay.
right, yeah, no worries, Miles. I will get on that. That's an issue on my end. That's a me problem.
Super.
Other question, just kind of on the bail, if everyone if people will indulge me here. One thing it's an issue I've s struggled with in the bail debate, and I'm curious to hear what others think. In bail, I mean, I'm well aware more of support our position on bail as a CCJ. There's just one gets brought up sometimes that I struggle with, and I was hoping somebody here might be able to illuminate it or clarify things for me on the bail front. Because I know that we frequently say that bail, I think the line is frequent that we have more people in bail now than we ever have before, is sometimes what's quoted in the media. But I mean, when I look at the stats and like knowing it, the actual numbers, at least in Ontario and I believe in Canada wide as well, the actual number from what I've seen is not higher than it's ever been. The proportion certainly is much larger. From what the proportion of individuals in pretrial detention versus those incarcerated is significantly higher.
Mhm.
That is certainly true, but sometimes it appears like the media line is like the sheer number of individuals, and to my knowledge, that's not quite right. And while I'm in favor of the argument of being more restrictive on the use of bail, I fear that sometimes using that, I mean, if I've understood the numbers correctly, my fear of like using that argument is that it could be pointed out as perhaps being incorrect. So the reason I bring it up is is anybody aware that I'm wrong about that? And if I'm not wrong on that front, to your knowledge, is this something we should try to correct on the record a little bit? Again, Dick, I'm sorry, I haven't seen the your report, so I'm not sure what's referred to. So happy to be wrong, but I was just hoping someone might be able to offer their opinion or correct me.
The sheer numbers aren't that hard to get. They're recorded by StatsCan.
Exactly, and that's what I've looked at.
Yeah, so the last time I looked at the numbers was when I did a paper. It was published now 15 years ago. But at that time, and again, we'd have to extrapolate that going forward, and I don't know if that's going to a correct approach or not. But in 1982, of all of those who were in remand custody or custody, one third of those were in remand custody. I'm sorry, one third were in sentence custody and two-thirds were in remand. You take that forward to 2010 and the reverse had happened. So two-thirds of all individuals were actually in remand custody, which means more denials of bail, clearly, and one-third was in sentence custody. So it basically flipped over,
Yeah.
right? And the graph that I did at the time was basically, you start here with the remand custody and it just went straight up. And those are numbers from StatsCan. I can't. I would be surprised if that has changed. At least the trajectory has changed because there's been nothing. I mean, the Supreme Court of Canada in the last few years has stepped in to reaffirm the operating premise of bail being the presumption of innocence and that release should be the first choice. So that may well have changed things. But I don't have the numbers, but again, you can get them in half an hour with StatsCan. We're just
Yeah.
crunching them.
Miles, pardon me, were you saying that currently only about a third of individuals in prison are on remand?
No,
Did I catch that?
two-thirds in remand, one-third in custody, in sentence custody.
Right. That sounds more like what I read more recently.
Yeah,
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 62 or 65%.
Yeah, it actually is that 66%. In 1982, when I started the work, it was the other way around. It was, one-third in remand custody and two-thirds in sentence custody, right?
That's my recall as well.
That's right. So it's flipped. And as I was saying, I mean, apart from the Supreme Court stepping in a few years ago and trying to reconfigure that formula, or at least returning to the operating premise of the presumption of innocence, I don't know whether those numbers have been altered dramatically. I'd be surprised, but I don't know.
So, Miles, you're right on that
I
end.
remember.
Oh, sorry, Stefan, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, I remember reading recently that those who didn't get bail or in custody and remand is between 70 and 80% in big places like Toronto. So I think the numbers are even higher than two-thirds. But you
They
have
are
to
in
check with
Ontario.
StatsCan.
In Ontario, I believe they're about 80%.
Yeah.
But this is the crux of my argument. What we're talking about are proportions, not number, not overall number. So, if we look at the number of people like incarcerated, like to a custodial sentence, who are in prison has gone down. So what we have is the denominator has decreased, which is making the proportion go up higher, but the actual number itself is not as high as it's ever been from what I've seen. And I think this is where like I worry a little bit sometimes that the story, at least my understanding of them, has changed. Because again, number versus proportion, it's a little bit different.
Well, when I did my work, it was numbers. So StatsCan deals with
Really?
cases being an individual with a number of charges. So that's one unit, a case. So those are real numbers, not proportions. But again, I haven't updated that. I'm sorry. So I talk over somebody. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that we have to look at Indigenous and also Blacks. They seem to be higher proportion that do not get bail versus non-Blacks or Indigenous. So that's another factor.
Yeah. There's a number of reasons for that. That's right, Stefan. Anyway, Brendan, you may well be right. The numbers may have been maybe adjusting, but I couldn't say for sure. I just know what it was 15 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it's something I'll look into it, and maybe it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. It's just because I remember I worked with some of this data like during my PhD. So I had it till about 2022, give or take. And part of that was impacted by COVID. But anyway, yeah, it's just maybe in the grand scheme of things, that nuance is not as important as the larger story we're trying to tell. I just sometimes I get a little anxious sometimes about that.
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say, without actually crunching the numbers again from StatScan, that I would be shell shocked if there weren't more people in remand custody on a numbers basis than there are in sentence custody. Still,
No, you're right
That's
on
certain.
that.
That's certain.
yeah.
That's not in doubt and that's not in question in my mind. But it's just sometimes when the media line is more people in remand than like we've ever had before, sort of thing. It's like, well, it's that overall number that I worry about, not the comparison. Because you're right, remand is certainly much more frequent than those sentenced to custody.
Yeah, yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, Brendan. The other point to be made, of course, with respect to the introduction of Bill C-14 is that the public as a whole don't care about the proportion of remand versus custody. They want everybody to be in remand custody, right? And so that's the whole deal. They just don't
Yeah,
understand what that's all about. And if you locked up everybody who was facing a charge with no bail, there would be peace in the land when it comes to public opinion. Right.
yeah,
But that's why things like Dick's paper is exceptionally important.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might just add, um, in my paper, as some of you have seen, I guess, I only use proportions, and but I think as has been said already, it'll be really easy to see if the numbers are in absolute numbers increasing over time. My guess, I don't know. I didn't need to make that point, but it's an easy one to answer, and maybe in terms of appearing before the Justice Committee, be a good piece of information to have. So that's helpful. Also, I might add that on the proportions, I believe, I don't have a paper in front of me right now. I believe I ended up with the proportion is 73%. This is nationwide of people in custody are in remand. So that's the one I've been working with. And I'll have to go back to the paper. I might have referred to the fact that the absolute number, and I'll have to check this, as I say, the absolute number doubled over some period of time. I'll have to go check that out.
Thanks, Dick. Yeah, I think we can keep that in mind before we appear before the committee, and I'll make sure those numbers are available to us. It's a good point to make when we're actually in front of the committee. So in that regard, I'll write to the clerk of the committee this week and see when they're going to be holding hearings, and then arrange for us based on your schedule, Dick. We'll arrange a time to go. And I can't imagine it'll be before our next PRC, but if it is, I'll let everybody know in the meantime. Okay, so that's C-14, which is obviously important to us. And so, as I had mentioned in the last meeting, I wasn't going to basically spend a lot of time on private members' bills until they actually make it to the Commons or the Senate as a public bill. And I can tell you that there's only been two new private members' bills introduced since our last meeting: Bill C-254, dealing with promotion of hatred against Indigenous peoples, and Bill C-255, which was to increase the penalties for mischief with respect to mischief to religious property. There are no Senate government bills that are of a criminal justice nature. And if you look at the agenda, I've highlighted those bills, those private member bills that have moved forward in their readings. The only one that I would mention is Bill Bill S-233, which since our last meeting has actually had second reading, third reading, and now first reading in the Commons. And that bill deals with an act to amend the criminal code regarding assault against persons who provide health services and services by first responders. So that one looks like it's moving forward and may in fact be a public bill at this point. And that's it. I don't have anything else with any bills unless somebody has something of interest for the group as a whole. All right, guys, thank you. We covered some territory today. I appreciate it. Any other news that comes up during the meantime, I'll let everybody know. Otherwise, our next meeting is, I've got this down somewhere. Our next meeting,
December 9th.
December 9th, right you are, and it'll be at our usual time of noon Eastern Standard Time. All right, guys, thank you very much. Pleasure to see
Thanks,
everybody.
thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.